So we each have our own management style that's inherently naturally ours. If you happen to manage people who are a match for your inherent style, it's a partnership made in heaven. Along the way, we develop other management styles, and these are usually created in response to our external environment or where a team member triggers us to respond in a particular way. These management styles or identities, they can have a positive or a negative effect on your team. So there are 7 management identities which, if they're used exclusively, will strangle your team, promoting multiple flight risks amongst your top performers and creating a glass ceiling so that your team always falls short. Let's take a look at those 7 management styles.
Well, hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Project Joyful podcast. I'm your host, Tracey, your medical herbalist and high performance coach. So, hey, Project Joyful isn't just about being happy. It's about consciously creating a life you love. It's about remembering how to reconnect with your soul-centered joy. You know, that joy that comes from doing what you love, from living on purpose, and from being in a life that allows you to experience deep joy moment by moment. So hey, let's get started, shall we?
Let me begin by asking you a question. How would you describe yourself as a manager? Or put another way, what is your managerial identity? We each have our own style for managing people. We have an inherent style which is usually aligned with how we like to be managed, and we have these learned styles as well. And these learned styles have typically evolved as a result of managing people who aren't exactly like us. Now, there are 7 management styles which will absolutely strangle your team's ability to function as a cohesive unit. We get into these in detail in my Corporate Sage Effect, but for today, so that you can be on the lookout for them, I'm going to share these 7 styles and how they can stifle your team. First up is the manager who believes themselves to be your best friend. Relationships do matter, don't get me wrong, and this one stems from a desire to be liked as a manager. There may be some people-pleasing going on as well, but while the closeness and the connection, if it's reciprocated, can enhance a team, the lack of clear boundaries often cause confusion. And when inevitably the manager is required to provide the team member with feedback, it can result in hurt feelings and sometimes the manager holding back for fear of compromising the relationship. But don't go too far in the opposite direction. Caring, trust, rapport, these all need to be present for a team to really work. But there needs to be clarity in the nature of the relationship, its boundaries and how it will operate. Now, this next style is very close to the best friend, and that's the team mum or dad or the team parent. So if you're always playing the team parent, then you're likely to be clearing up after your team. Rather than providing feedback on a task that doesn't meet your expectation, you fix it yourself because, well, it's quicker and it's easier that way. You tend to solve your team's problems for them rather than providing coaching so that they can solve things themselves and learn from that experience. It's important that you set the expectation that they can come to you with a problem, but they also need to come with possible solutions to be considered, rather than just with a question that they haven't thought through. If you're the parent manager, you feel responsible for your team rather than accountable. Move towards the overprotective parent and you'll meet the controller. Controllers need to know every single thing that happens within the team. They usually need certainty, and they feel like they're managing because they know what's going on and they make every single decision. This management style can encourage team members to withhold information. They might feel disempowered because they're not trusted to make a decision, and it encourages flight risks because, well, the only way to get some career advancement is by leaving the team and taking on responsibilities elsewhere. And the biggest problem with this management style is that for the manager, it leads to burnout. The manager simply can't sustain the energy needed to know and decide everything on top of doing their job. The manager who is the doer is very closely aligned with the parent manager and the best friend manager. They're usually former technical experts. They frustrate their team because Their team member will go to do something only to find that it's already been done by the manager. And in time, the team learn that they don't need to stretch or push through because the manager will take care of things. So they begin to coast, knowing that everything is going to be taken care of for them. The manager might feel resentful or not respected. They might blame the team, but in fact, the team is behaving exactly how they have been trained to behave. The next style is the conflict avoider. Now this is the manager who avoids those tough conversations. So because of that, they'll let poor behaviour or performance continue for the sake of keeping the peace. They'll stay quiet in management meetings, preferring to go with the status quo rather than be perceived to be rocking the boat. And as a result, their team feels undefended or without a champion. And they begin to act out because, well, they know they can get away with it. The clock-watching manager measures the team's effectiveness in hours, minutes and seconds. It's not about what they do or why they're doing it, but whether they are at their desk when the bell rings to start the day and how long they take for lunch. The manager doesn't seem to notice the additional hours that are put in or the innovative methodology designed by the team along the way. And eventually you'll be left with team members who find comfort in this style of bureaucracy. They'll measure their day by the time spent at their desk and the pay packet at the end of the week, and so as a result, mediocrity will prevail. And finally, we have the martyr, or victim in disguise. They'll work excessive hours, supposedly for the good of the organisation, wearing themselves out by putting themselves last and never taking a holiday that's long enough to allow them to recover. They do the work, but deep down they resent it. Their resentment eats away at their joy until one day they just can't do it anymore. They feel alone, trapped or misunderstood. Now, whilst I've summarised these 7 types, what's most common is that managers move in and out of these types depending on the circumstance or if a team member triggers a certain response identity. Now, the first step is to become aware, because these identity types are largely playing out on an unconscious level. So let me invite you to spend some time reflecting on these 7 management identities. Where have you seen them play out in your workplace? And what was the effect on the team? Today we've briefly touched on 7 management identities that can get in the way of creating a high-functioning team. Just as a quick recap, those 7 management styles are the best friend, the team mum or dad, the controller, the doer, the conflict avoider, the clock watcher, and the martyr. Sending you lots of love. Bye for now.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's podcast. Can I ask you a favour? If our conversation spoke to you today, could you please take a moment to leave a 5-star review? Your review will help people discover this podcast, and together we can create a world where there's even more love and more laughter. And if you want to hear more from the Project Joyful podcast, just click the subscribe button. Bye for now.